The chains clink, hear the echo in the fog of the land. Dollar bills on the leash, gripped tight by the hand. Eagles clip, can't fly, wings covered in grime. Statues cry, tears of oil, rusted gears at a time. Never bow, never break, never simping again. Simping's a sickness, let the truth be the pen. Trust the plan, they said, but look where we stand. A chessboard flip, now it's war in the sand. Puppet strings pulled tight, marionettes in the hall. Politicians dance smooth while the empire falls. Mountains of debt, can't climb, can't crawl. Truth buried deep beneath the Capitol walls. Drums of war beat heavy, echo loud in the haze. Promises shattered like glass in a maze. Voices scream betrayal, trapped in the blaze. The flag waves torn, lost in forgotten days. Never bow, never break, never simping again. Simping's a sickness, let the truth be the pen. Trust the plan, they said, but look where we stand. A chessboard flip, now it's war in the sand. Never bow, never break, never simping again. Simping's a sickness, let the truth be the pen. Trust the plan, they said, but look where we stand. A chessboard flip, now it's war in the sand. Trump card played wrong, now the deck's in their hands. Deal signed in the dark, bleeding out the land. Fist clenched, eyes sharp, time to make a stand. Own our future, no pawn, just a king in demand. Trump card played wrong, now the deck's in their hands. Deal signed in the dark, bleeding out the land. Fist clenched, eyes sharp, time to make a stand. Own our future, no pawn, just a king in demand.
Well, hello and welcome in to another episode of Offensively Accurate, hosted by yours truly, everybody's favorite racially ambiguous white nationalist. Welcome in, everybody. It's been such an enjoyable ride these last couple of months, and I appreciate it, you, Garrett. It's been cool getting shouted out from a bunch of different people who I used to follow a year ago. It's kind of crazy how quickly it's kind of happening. So I did want to say that, first of all, first and foremost, major thank you to you guys. I do appreciate it quite a bit. And a few points of order, some housekeeping before we get into some stuff. Obviously, again, massive thank you to all the new followers, but not even just here on YouTube as well. Got a bunch of following on X too. Kaiser Rev followed me of all people, and I follow that guy all the time. I look at his clips often. I like his channel quite a bit. So shout out to all you guys and all the groypers who are here. I do appreciate it very much. And then, with it, he liked the Project Esther mini documentary, which to me is still the best piece of content I think I have produced on the channel, period. So definitely check that out if you're not already. But with that, though, I did get a shout out from a very hilarious account. If you guys are familiar with the Republican congressman, which was a play on ad that just basically tried to show Republicans as these kind of old, very hardcore Christians who hate fun. But he's got a funny X account. He shouted me out as well. That got a lot of play. That got me a lot more followers on X. So that's been awesome. And again, I'm just going to take it all in. I am an amateur. So again, I'm just kind of taking this one day at a time. So with that being said, still going to try to give you guys obviously the best content that I possibly can. And getting into that too, another shout out happened that I was awoken to this morning. Now, I'm not too familiar with who these guys are, but I'm familiar with the names. So Sam Tripoli and John Woodard, and I believe they host the Broken Simulation podcast, actually clipped about a 3-minute segment from my Nelk Boys damage control video, covering that, the recap of it. And that was awesome. The funny part with that, when I went and found it, it's around the 33rd minute of their last episode, 165. I'd put the video up, but it's behind a paywall right now, which I believe it's they do it a week behind. So I'll get that video out to you guys when they release it on their YouTube, which is very fun. But it gets to the point of the video where I'm starting to bring up like the Israel statistics, and they immediately usher it off, and they're like, okay, hold on, he's about to get into stats. We don't do statistics here. It's like, that's funny, and I'll familiarize myself a bit more with them, to be honest. I'm just not that familiar with who they are, but shout out to them. That was awesome, and so it's just showing that the content's obviously reaching more and more people, and kind of getting to a point where if I put enough effort into a video, it basically hits anywhere from 50 to 100,000 views. To me, that feels like I'm in a spot where I would imagine somebody from YouTube probably has looked at my account and my page. So now I am not saying I'm going to start playing things safe, obviously, but that is, that does go into the calculation of how I should treat things. And, it probably doesn't help that half the comments are, how are you not banned on YouTube? Man, how is this guy? How's this guy not banned on YouTube? It's like, yeah, I'm sure YouTube probably picks up on those things. And they're probably wondering why so many people are saying that, but I understand the sentiment, obviously, and appreciate you guys for being here. And definitely smash the like button. Obviously, that helps the channel tremendously. There's no other metric that helps more than the like button, obviously the subscribe button too. But the like button basically is like a push. Anytime you like any kind of video or stream, it basically tells YouTube, send it to 5 more people. And so that's kind of like the pro feature of the like button. I've been looking into it a little bit. So with all the housekeeping out of order, don't want to bore everybody to death. Where we're going to cover a couple of things is, it's been a minute since I've done a solo stream. I did a few collabs. I did a collab with Outside the Overton. Check out those guys, because if you like Nick's content, you like my content, definitely check them out. Outside the Overton is the name of their podcast. It'll be, the YouTube channel would be under Zeb Boykin, ZEBBOYKIN. You can find him on X and on YouTube as well. And he co-hosts that with Josh Vandernord. And Josh also has his own socials as well. You can find their stuff there too. They're a pretty strong dissident account, and I did a collab with them, as well as Dark Cell, who's the resident incel in our community, but he's very, very funny, and he's well spoken. So I appreciate having him on to talk a bit about these kind of relationship issues. The next person I would like to have on also recently joined the Discord. Her name is Casey. I actually forgetting her last name right now. But Casey is the creator behind Bring the Asteroid News. You guys probably, I would imagine, have probably seen her content. We are very similar in size. I think we both just recently passed 8,000 subscribers. So congrats to her, and obviously thank you to you guys. I see that chat in there. How long until you accept sports betting adverts? Never. I actually turned off alcohol and gambling. They turned them off on my page. I don't want any degenerates making money off of my content. I hate that shit. So here's where we are. We have a few things. We're going to talk about a little bit of the recap from the Alex Jones and the Nick Fuentes debate. From that, we have the outward forward look, which kind of gives us the main news story, which is, the new right, which is kind of the name title here, which obviously the left and the right are disintegrating simultaneously. From there, though, we'll cover a little bit from the Bradley Martyn and Nick Fuentes interview, which I think was probably Nick's best forward-facing publicity event, probably since he had like the generational run over the Iran war. But that was a bit more niche. Bradley Martyn obviously appeals to a lot more people in public. And then from there, we're going to dive a bit more into the Epstein stuff, but not old news stories. We're going to cover new revelations, because that seems to be the consistent theme here, is that the pattern of the Epstein story is that we have continually gotten concessions over and over and over again, which is, in short, there's no video. Oh, and now we do have video. Oh, and now there's more video, but we haven't released it yet. And, it's basically a continual period of concessions, because obviously they are trying to hide the fact that, for one, he worked for Mossad. He's an Israeli asset, but not just an Israeli asset. He was a nebulous intelligence asset, overall. And so when they continually kind of shove that down, and again, Peter Thiel, again, this morning or earlier today, I should say, had another statement saying, I definitely don't think he was part of an intelligence. And it's like, yeah, I'm going to trust Peter Thiel on this. Like, it's insane. But in the light of Virginia Giuffre, because Trump had a change of narrative, if you will, right? And we'll dig a little bit deeper into that. But it basically, the reasoning, as far as we've come to understand it in the narrative, is that Donald Trump severed and cut ties with Epstein because he was a creep. But when asked a bit more specifically on that, he kind of had a change of tune over why he pushed Epstein out. We'll get into that too. Virginia Giuffre, obviously being one of the more vocal accusers of Epstein. She was involved with Prince Andrew, I believe, if I'm correct. I believe that's who it was, largely who she was involved with. And apparently she worked at Mar-a-Lago when she was 16. So there's some strong connections there. We'll get into that. There's inconsistencies again. The CBS news investigation going into the video footage that was released, that's long been looked at for quite a bit now. You have the stitching, you have the metadata, and we'll get into that too. So we have some new revelations on there as well. And then some of the smaller things would be, obviously it's massive that the AG kind of backed down from Arval's return to the land project in Arkansas. I think that probably, and like Nick and Keith Woods have said too, that by itself is overtly the most substantive, like political event, political, that's happened in who knows how long, especially in terms of in alignment with our values, especially here as Christian nationalists and how we view that. And so I thought that was great. And maybe partly because they fear what that would ultimately look like were it to reach a level of being appealed in the Supreme Court, which many people don't realize. But, Thomas Clarence has basically already come out and said that he does find that the way that the Civil Rights Act impedes upon the freedom of association is unconstitutional. So if you already have Thomas Clarence going out on a limb and saying that, we could probably get a very just ruling from the Supreme Court, and that would be awesome. And then, a couple smaller things. Nick and Candace got into a very heated, spat, and it was more funny than it was substantive. But basically, Candace Owens is crashing out. You have her trying to rehab Harvey Weinstein. I think that's how you pronounce his name. For Lord knows whatever reason, right? But I think the optics is very obvious that Nick is treated like this scum, where Harvey Weinstein's given every benefit of the doubt. She's given him she's crossing she's going beyond the pale in every step. Oh yeah, well they really must have lied about you, huh? It's just BS. We'll cover a bit of what their beef was there too. And as we go along, probably a couple of smaller things, but that's where we'll kind of start. And so this is where, and to start, we'll go back to the Alex Jones and the Nick Fuentes debate, but it wasn't really a debate. If anybody watched it, I'm sure a lot of you guys who are in here definitely did. But the topic of it was essentially, should America continue to support Trump despite the Epstein debacle? How is the MAGA base supposed to respond to this? And early on, very early on, you immediately get this concession from Alex Jones that, oh no, it's like, Israel actually does control everything. I've been saying it was China, it's been, this country, but actually, no, I am of the belief that the Israelis are well in control now. He kind of worded it as if like they recently came into power. So it's a half concession. But it wasn't a debate. Alex Jones and Nick Fuentes agreeing with each other largely on a lot of the similar things. And I think it was funny because Alex Jones's son, I believe his name is Rex, on X all day, I think leading up to the debate, he was posting things like, don't let him dance. He's like cheering on Nick. And it's just a funny, dichotomy there, because obviously you would think he would support his dad. But Rex has come quite a long way, and probably partly, being abetted by the fact that you do have Alex Jones as your father, opening your eyes to a lot of things. So you have a lot of viewers in here. Make sure you smash the like button. Obviously helps tremendously. But with that though, I do think that Alex has moved to Nick's position. I do think that by proxy of the fact of just how many times this Nick had an appearance on InfoWars in the last, 3-4 months. He's probably made at least 5 appearances now, 6 possibly. 2 debates alone between Dinesh and Alex himself, and then multiple appearances beforehand as well, obviously with the geopolitics regarding Iran. So I think Alex is very keen to listen to what Nick has to say. And, everybody obviously pushes for Alex Jones being controlled opposition. I'm of a few different mindsets of Alex. I think there's a lot of, with the good comes the bad with him, and I'll take him for what he is. But the thing is overall, I do agree with where they took the majority of the discussion, which is you can't categorically separate the Epstein debacle from Trump's actions. And now it's funny because I think it was AE Templar on X posted this, but this is where we're at, right? The law of Trump. And the law of Trump is this: it will not be done unless Israel wants it to be done. That is the law of Trump. And that is essentially where we are at currently. But you can't separate the Epstein stuff for multiple reasons, and largely this, because the Epstein files and all of the rhetoric leading up to in the last 10 years about them, it became this symbol of what is wrong with like American politics. The Epstein files represents the backdoor, the slimy hands, the exchanging of details, the insider trading, everything that people hate about the American system that is, maybe not even technically part of the system, but is peripheral related, all is kind of absorbed into this umbrella, which is Jeffrey Epstein. And that's why it's kind of inseparable, because it was such a change of heart, such a change of narrative. And quickly on the back of that, you get are we still talking about Epstein? And so you have so many quick changes there. It's hard to buy anything that's coming out of their mouths, especially when you do have an extremely low trust society. And the hope was that Donald Trump would at least help boost some of that trust, which he's doing the opposite right now. And so what I thought was the biggest takeaway from the entire debate overall, though, was how do we move forward from here, right? What is the next step? Where do we think the parties go from here, right? What are the responses, the reaction? Who makes the play? And so I have a 5-minute clip here. I think it's really good. And we'll go ahead and play that. And I'll go ahead and get it pulled up here as long as my internet works with me. Hopefully it should. I do see that, Titan. Thank you very much. I'll put it up on screen here in a second. Let me get this video to pull up here first. And thank you very much, Titan. Titan says, forgive me. I have TTS on. I just forgot that I needed to turn it up actually a little bit. Apologize, guys. Okay. Well, I'll read it though. Titan says, this whole topic moving into the mainstream, it makes me feel like we might not actually know the full truth anymore. All of a sudden, these social media platforms don't care. I appreciate the donation very much. And yes, the big argument I think that does have some level of credibility is obviously the chain of custody. And I can see that being an argument in terms of the time, as if it would be, maybe the time scale has now elongated quite a bit, because now we have to actually truly go back and go, well, who touched it? Who had it here? Was this present in the original file? Who made this addition? And obviously it's going to take some time, but to act as if it's too nebulous of a network to even attempt to look at it, the majority of Americans don't agree with that. I mean, they just don't. They're like, we don't, like, to me, it's like, I don't care if it's like 10, 15, 20 years. Get us the fucking Epstein list. Like, we need to know. And I think I take a bit more of Vinny Ohana's stance on it, which is, if America is built on the back of blackmail, and the majority of what we actually do accomplish in the political realm is driven by child abuse, yeah, I don't care what cost it takes, burn it to the ground. Now, I know some people might want to take a bit more incrementalist stance on that, but I'm sorry, like, the egregious nature of what has been alleged by what's been occurring and the people that it touches, it's too much to sit here and say, like, to me, that's just such BS. And I think, if anything, I think shows the hand, which is there's a lot more people involved on that than I think even some of us would like to acknowledge. But here's the video. Let me switch screens here too. And again, I changed the desktop audio, so chat should come in with TTS when I click on them now, hopefully. I'm hoping. But okay, here we go. And I have this pulled up here. And again, it's about a 5-minute clip. But this is Nick taking it. Where does the American right go after Trump? And this is something that I've been about for a hot minute, and I even kind of predict this well before we had even the Epstein stuff and the mega kind of implosion with Elon Musk. This was about Calendargate. Calendargate, I think, showed the ridges, which is you can't have big tent conservatism, especially when you do have such radically different social value sets between the Christian conservatives and then like the right-leaning libertarians who just don't like trans people. It's like there's a major kind of difference between those two value sets there, and partly, why the split was, bound to happen, whether it was on this topic or another one. Thank you very much, Chris. I see that in here. Christopher Zen.
Christopher Zen has donated $11.34 and says, I know one thing, JD is not the guy. Vivek /Ramang Svamya in Thai lesson to observe. He and hashtag 039, S2 practiced in politics to be any good.
You know, I'm from Ohio, and I'm very. It's going to be very soon that I'm going to be being ruled by an Indian. I do not appreciate the thought or the sentiment or any part of it, to be honest. But I tried saying this about 2 years ago. I think Ohio is moving to a purple position, not only just from the shift in the climate here in Ohio, but also because Ohio has been assaulted with these illegal immigrants like crazy. I mean, everybody remembers the cats and the dogs, right? Well, I'm not going to say how far away I am from that, but that's near where I live. And there's multiple other instances. If you look at Ohio, you can just type in illegal immigrants dropped off small town Ohio. There's more than just Springfield. It goes way beyond Springfield. And so I think we were going to be one of those Midwest states that's affected. But enough of me yapping. This is, again, Nick Fuentes on where he thinks the American right is going to go post the Epstein debacle with Donald Trump. I'll let her rip.
You know, some people look at this as dreadful. I look at this as kind of like momentum. This is an explosion of energy that can propel maybe something even more anti-establishment into the fore. You know, and people like liberals were pointing out, Trump is losing with the younger demographic. Trump's approval among the 18 to 25 is crashing out more than any other demo. The old people don't care, but the young people are furious about this. And the left said, oh, this is great.
He's the rebel, and this is the main issue. And he thought he had the political cachet to say, shut up. And a person with a 70 IQ would have known that was a disastrous move, which goes to the mental acuity of him and his advisors.
But in particular with the young people, and I agree, because he thought he could do it, but he didn't. The young people are leaving, and the left is telling us, oh, great, Trump is losing the youth. This is a great day for the left. But Trump is losing the youth, not because the youth are going to the left. He's losing the youth because they're more right-wing than Trump. Trump has created a generation of Nick Fuenteses and Groypers.
And that's my next question. I saw you talk about this, and I like Charlie Kirk. I'm not his enemy, and I think he's been brought along. But they're literally having struggle sessions now. When you've been banned from their events, I've been there when you get taken out by police. The fact that they tried to ban you from the building only made you bigger. Do a little short thing on that.
Sure. Well, you know, last week they did this Turning Point struggle session on Israel. And what I said on my show is that for many years, back in 2019, I came at Turning Point USA as a critic from the right. Turning Point was considered the rightmost youth organization in the country. And they were the gladiators against the left. They were.
Listen, I don't want to hear anything about my thumbnail. You have Alex Jones playing like AI recreations of Mr. Gumface over here. You mean people were mad that I used that thumbnail of Charlie Kirk in the last video? This is worse. This is like an AI recreation. I don't need to see the monster in 3D. But you know, on those ends though, you know, everything that Nick is saying here is absolutely spot on.
The most pro-Trump, the most right-wing. Then here comes the Groypers that are saying you're not right-wing enough on the social issues, on immigration, on identity, and in particular on Israel. And their first response back in 19 was to ban us. They banned me from their events. They kicked the Groypers out. They fired the Groypers that were sympathetic in their organization. And they tried to ignore us. They tried to purge us. They tried to pretend we didn't exist. Fast forward 6 years later, and their whole organization is filled with Groypers. Their events are filled with Groypers. The youth is about as right-wing as me. Maybe they're even more right-wing than me, even.
And to quantify and explain, they had literally an event with their people.
You know, one thing I'll add there too, I think everybody here for the most part, and maybe you're not, there is there is a lot more people to the right, further right, than where Nick Fuentes is at, by quite a large margin. And you can see that, and not to say like, you know, Nick's not far right enough at all. You know, I think Nick's perfect where he's at and I align with him. But you see it, right, with Handsome Truth and what's his name? Paul Miller. I can't remember what that guy's name is. Gypsy Crusader. And and you see these guys, right? You see there's literally these kind of Hyperborean race only, race first individuals that have literally zero connection to Christianity. So there is quite a bit, right, on the far hand side, people who are to the right of Nick. And it's wild to think that, you know, the left has spun a lot of the normies into believing that Trump, again, is this Nazi figure, when it's like, man, if you move Trump out of the way, there is loads of people much, much further right than him, you know. And it's like, again, in the words of that famous racist from the South, which I think he's hilarious, nobody's ready for Generation Zyklon. And I think that's probably the most astute observation you can make right now. But how is that going to develop? How is that going to turn into? I guess we're about to see how that'll play out. I'll go through these chats here real quick. Appreciate the donations, guys. Christopher again with...
Christopher Zen has donated $5 and says Trump drop the mask and kick it into Bongino and hashtag 039 S shins.
Yeah, it was odd with Bongino. You know, his kind of little tantrum going back and forth. They've been saying all these kind of like super cryptic messages. Like, I think he's a guy who knows his credibility is absolutely shot, and he's just in any flailing attempt trying to claw back at like, no, I promise I'm the good guy fighting the good fight. And it's like, no, you're not. Not even close. And Cypher's Basement.
Cypher and hashtag 039 S Basement has donated $2 and says tipping you for that insane thumbnail. Too good.
I appreciate it. Thank you. I appreciate it. I'm trying to get better at my editing skills than the airbrush stuff. That is one thing I need to get better at. My editing skills are like sub-tier, guys. That's why it takes me like 9 hours to make a single video. I'll get better with time. I promise. I'm trying. And, but back to this, obviously, again, I think a lot of people just are not aware of what's coming. And if they're putting like a lot of these just right-leaning guys who are simply disillusioned by Trump's, from what their perspective, misunderstanding or unable to ascertain relationship with Israel, well, man, they should listen to anyone who has a stronger or much clearer idea of what that relationship is. It's crazy, but I'm here for it and I'm ready for it.
About this now.
That's right. And last week they had to hold this struggle session where they are very aware of this problem, that at their events, they have people crying out for something that is truly America first, that is authentic, that's going to call out Israel. And so they host this session where they're basically trying to mediate, and they're sort of putting themselves in this position like they have power over the conversation. The youth are already super far right. They come in and say, we're going to mediate this transition to the far right, as if they control that at all, as if they have any say. And so they...
Bro, he's playing the worst moments of the guy, dude. Like, okay, maybe Alex hates Charlie Kirk too.
They bring in all their chapter leaders. They bring in some of the members of their organization, and they have this, what is supposed to be a focus group, where they have an honest conversation about Israel. And one by one, Charlie Kirk says, when you say Israel, what's the first thing that comes to mind? And one by one, the chapter leaders of Turning Point USA, the biggest right-wing campus group, they say the first word that comes to mind, Mossad, genocide, AIPAC, foreign lobbying, foreign wars, things that were unthinkable 6 years ago, things that, almost nobody was talking about 6-7 years ago, 6-7. And Charlie Kirk is there basically trying to mediate this and say, well, you don't hate Israel. You just have some moderate criticisms. Well, we still support Israel. We still love Israel. And we don't have any problems with Judaism, but you just have some narrow criticisms about Netanyahu.
Gallup poll even shows.
And Alex Jones, multiple times in that, though, one thing that was obviously noticeable, and I think I said this at the beginning too, Alex Jones has a couple points where it's like the moment he's about to say something that's negative towards Trump, he's like, well, and what I think about Trump is, and it's like, what? And it's like, what'd you say, man? And Alex is like, well, what I think Trump did wrong with the Epstein files is, what? What'd you say, man? And like, he keeps going into these like insane like hypotheticals and these long preambles, and it's the same thing that quite honestly, it parallels how Candace is treating Harvey Weinstein, which is throwing him an exceptionally long kind of life raft and rope and like every benefit of the doubt. And part of me kind of gets it too. You know, I think a lot of the audience with behind Alex Jones is largely Maga aligned, and with his only kind of option to survive right now on X, which probably doesn't have the best monetization options, he's probably between a rock and a hard place. And that's just being honest. That's how a lot of creators treat this stuff. You know, they treat it versus like where their bottom line is at. What, how much is this going to affect my money, right? We saw Sneeko turn his back on everything because he wanted his YouTube channel back, right? Then he puts out some ridiculous video about like, never lose a friend for money. It's like, dude, you are a fucking huge hypocrite. And this is coming from somebody who generally likes a lot of what Sneeko was doing a couple years ago. But you know, I do think something does happen to your psychology when you intentionally cuck yourself, but that's a story for another day. And so that's kind of, you know, in short, kind of giving a recap there. And there's this one photo that kind of does a good job kind of exemplifying or exhibiting this kind of like drunken kind of nature that Alex Jones had throughout this. And you'll see it in the screenshot here. This is from Cayuga's Top Gal, but I'll click on it and make it a bit bigger. And move my big face out of the way. But this is it, right? This is like, this is what I was picking up throughout the entire interview, was you're getting this level from Alex Jones of just what I could only consider like a kooky behavior. I think even Stu Peters shouted him out, saying like, lay off the alcohol. You know, it's never been better being like 4 years sober. And there was an element of that too. I don't think he was on drugs or drunk or anything. I just think he's a little mentally broken from the recent events. I mean, this guy pulled over in his car and cried on the highway when the news dropped about Epstein and Donald Trump's, you know, statement on it. Now, I think the guy is fully well aware of like what is going on. He just is in a position where if he says it, he's probably not ready for the consequences of what's going to happen to him. And so, you know, from there though, that's basically kind of the idea. But again, piggybacking off of that idea though, with where does the politics go from here? And you basically have both parties actually like dissolving at the same time, right? Simultaneously. So with the left, you have like all these progressives. You have a lot of the progressive establishment fighting the progressive group fighting with a bit more of like the establishment Democrats, not as visible in fighting as what's happening like on our end with the right wing, but obviously we're paying attention to it a bit more. And then you have Elon starting American Party X, which I've had like 8 different reporters from that network like follow me. It's like, bro, I'm not going to give you the time of day. Like, you made a party for Indians and H-1Bs. Like, I don't want any part of it. And he's like, we need to represent the middle majority. And it's like, I don't want to go back to 2012 liberal America. Like, I want to go back to like the 50s, maybe remove some of the things post World War II, but obviously. And then, I see that's here. Another massive super chat in here from Gambler's Luck.
Gambler's Luck has donated $4.99 and says, any thoughts on the increasing censorship, like needing government aids to use social media? Feels like this free talk currently is a trap for later.
Well, multiple things on that. The first thing I would say is, I'm obviously a bit concerned. I think with this kind of surging prominence of Fuentes, I think a lot of people are, and I even highlighted this, forgive me, I can't remember the guy's name, one of the comments I got a lot of them in that same light, which was, there's a lot of people who feels like it's not, like the noticing is organic, but the allowance of it is not organic. And so you're getting these feelings of like, is there a purpose for this? And so it's reminiscent of a lot of people when they were first opening up speech on X, where a lot of people felt like X was going to become a honeypot, where you basically bait people into thinking they can say whatever they want. And then after a month or two, you pull the rug on people and you go, oh, okay, there you go. Yep, here we have all these people. Here's all their posts, throw them in jail, yada, yada, yada. And an extension of that too, the Quartering did put out a decent video on it, but like most of the Quartering's videos, you can watch a couple minutes of it and you've already seen the entire video. The YouTube, and I believe there's other social media platforms doing the same thing, they're kind of like implementing this AI psychological system, like tracking system. But basically it's going to be behavioral. That's what it's going to be off of, right? It's going to judge based on like what time you view It's going to base it off of like what content you view. And so if it determines that the content and your activities on the chat or on the platform would line up or align with somebody or a child's behavior, it will actually give you like a notification where you then have to like put in your government ID to continue using YouTube. Now, at least that's how YouTube's going to be doing it. And I think they're going to be doing that for under 16s as well. So it's not even just under 18s, it's under 16s. I could be wrong about that though. But the Quartering did put out a decent video about it. And you can watch that there. And I think the timing of it is a bit curious as well too, because they're probably doing it in the middle of the summer because they do know that ultimately a lot of people don't pay attention to stuff in the summer, especially this late into it as well. And a lot of people are on vacation. I appreciate seeing everybody in here in chat. Tix, Bomb, and Marcus, all you guys, I do appreciate it very much, especially all the regulars and everybody else here who is not a regular. Appreciate you being in here too. Let me go to the next one. I believe I got another one after that. This is from Captain Honkler.
CPT Honkler of Turkestani Army has donated $5 and says Jones is a boomer, they will never wake up. Spent over 2 years J-pilling my parents. My mom told me recently teaching her to notice freaked her out.
Thank you for the super chat, and thank you for the last individual for the super chat as well. Thank you very much, Mr. Gambler. But yes, Jones is at least an intellectual boomer. You know, I'll give him that. Whether it's a matter of not waking up or not being willing to say what needs to be said are two different things, and I still don't know where I sit with him at. But again, you know, when you're losing in a fight as badly as we are, which, you know, we're winning a bit more now, I just find it a bit pedantic to find, like, you know, go and like try to be extremely precise with like all these kind of nuanced, you know, oppositional arguments to it. I get it, obviously, and I think there's a lot of room to critique Alex Jones for sure. But again, major shout out because he's one of the only people willing to have Nick on and treat him in a good faith manner, right? We saw Candace Owens is willing to do it, and shout out Bradley Martyn too as well. We'll get into that one here in a little bit. But thank you again for the super chat. I appreciate it very much. And so where did I leave off at it? You know, the party's dissolving, right? So the parties are losing power. The balkanization of the political system is kind of happening right now. You have the left losing overall kind of big tent power. The Maga is obviously losing big tent power. You can see, you know, the approval rating from Trump losing in different points as well, while still seeing a big shift towards the right. It's kind of a cool development. And then Elon starting the Indian party, which again, I think is going to be a massive failure. I think even Nicole Shanahan, who was the vice presidential running mate of RFK, has made statements that she would potentially start a party. And she's a billionaire like Elon Musk, although probably not as rich as he is. Probably could sway some power too. And then, you know, you still have the Libertarian Party that's always non-existent until every 4 years. And they pop up out of nowhere. And then they're like, oh, here I am. And here's a random candidate who loves wearing masks and is actually not a libertarian. It's like, you guys are just the joke party at this point. But there is that. And I've always been along of the idea that if there was ever a time to actually start a legitimately try to start a third party, you know, maybe sixth or seventh party, it would be when the other parties are also weakening. Because the biggest argument against a third party is, well, it pulls votes from the two big ones, the two main ones. But if both of those simultaneously are weakening and also having their own balkanization happening, there's no greater time, because at that point it's like it's anybody's guess. And then, you know, ultimately that kind of first primary data would probably be the big tell-all then of how effective that would be. And hopefully that's something we can get. I think a lot of people would wish for that too. Obviously, leaving the uniparty system, right? And we're not red, we're not blue, we are purple. And so there's a little bit there. But one thing I do want to go to was the Bradley Martyn and Nick Fuentes interview. Ultimately, not going to spend too much time on it overall. But one thing that was funny was that you have this Jew who just like comes out and just starts losing their mind at this interview. And I've seen a couple of his videos before. He's not like the one that like constantly tries to trick God or anything, but he does a couple of these kind of like reaction videos. Let me see if I can get it. It's from Kaiser Rev. Let me clear some of these tabs out too if my computer goes up in flames. And I'll switch it over. So here we go. And look at that. Oh, that's sexy. Kaiser, we follow each other. Kaiser's a mutual. Because if you're in chat, say something. No, I just like the account very much. But here's a reaction, right? And so you have someone losing their mind on the premise of what's always followed Nick and anyone willing to platform him is, you have no idea what you've just done. You have no idea what you've just enabled. I don't really have a good like Jew voice, so we'll just go ahead and let this guy say it for himself. But we'll let it rip. Here it is.
What do you think the biggest reason is why people say you're anti-Semitic?
Well, it's just like everything else. There was a time.
Great job, Brad. I don't expect Brad here to understand the danger of fucking platforming somebody like Nick Fuentes and then asking questions. But why do they think you're anti-Semitic? Because Bradley's brain is mostly fucking SARMs at this point, and he's not capable of having this fucking conversation. Clearly, because people have brought this up to him. Hey, maybe stop platforming fucking anti-Semites and just unapologetic racists and fucking goons like this. And yet Bradley's like, I don't know, fuck, I can fight you. It would take 3 fucking seconds to do the greatest hits of Nick Fuentes' anti-Semitism or misogyny or racism or transphobia or all of the shit that he says in this clip that he just gets labeled because I have opinions. It's because he is all of those things. All of those fucking isms he's the fucking poster child. And Bradley Martyn thinks it's a good idea for views and clicks to normalize having.
Okay, so you get the idea, right? He's just like, he's crashing out. He's crashing out. How dare Nick Fuentes ever be allowed to speak publicly, right? I did miss a super chat, though. I apologize. Let me go back here. It's from O.
O has donated $2 and says, are you guys Nazis? Be honest.
What would be your best guess? I'm curious what you think, O. Let me know what you think your best guess is. There's about 40 minutes of content here in this stream right now. Like, what is that supposed to mean? Like admitting it means like, oh, right? Like, oh no, that you've lost. All that power is gone. The words mean nothing anymore. You call Trump a Nazi when he's literally a Democrat. You have no idea what a Nazi even is. Anyways, so obviously you have this guy reaching out, but there was a good clip of Nick's thoughts afterwards of the Bradley Martyn interview that I thought was good. I think it ought to be better than, a bit more of a recap here than anything, than playing any single clip from that interview too. Plus, I have been copyright hit the last couple of times I've tried playing these interviews from Nick. I'm not going to take that chance today, but we'll go ahead and watch this here. And so this is kind of him giving a recap. It's 5 minutes long, might not play the whole thing, but kind of giving his ideas and his thoughts of how he thought that interview went.
Before we get into the show, I hope you all saw my big interview with Bradley Martyn on the Raw Talk podcast. Just premiered this morning, and the response has been incredible. I was going through the comments today. I think people are saying it's the best interview I've done maybe ever. People are saying it's top 5 all-time interviews, maybe the best one this year. I don't want to say that because I did a lot of stuff this year, but people are saying it is really one of the best conversations I've had. He was a phenomenal interviewer and a really nice guy, really genuine, and we didn't agree on everything. That's okay. I think it made for a really compelling conversation, and it was a good faith conversation. We were both trying to achieve understanding, and I think that's the best kind of conversation.
And the cool thing about it too, it's kind of funny how the worlds collide. And I'm somebody, I've talked about this, but you guys might not be familiar. I am a recovering wigger. You can probably tell just based off of my getup and maybe other appearances I've had. And it's kind of cool to see those worlds collide because Bradley Martyn was an inspiration of mine, as a former personal trainer. That's kind of like where my world was at prior to being, involved in politics. And to think that it's once again going to be the guys who are, in that space, right? The kind of like the Vitali or the Kenny KOs, the ones who are willing to, be edgy are ultimately be the ones who will be the kind of ramp into the mainstream. And that's awesome. That is awesome, right? And so it's kind of cool to be on the other end of there where, I kind of had moved away from where Bradley Martyn was at because I kind of, he's not in the same category as Joey Swoll, where Joey Swoll sits on the fence, right? And then he basically just like tarnished his career overnight because he apologized for liking Hulk Hogan. And again, it's just like, dude, just have conviction, dude. Like, find it in you to have conviction. You cannot, and this is advice for anybody too, you can't live life sitting on the fence, dude. And maybe you can, maybe you have a taint of steel, but you cannot live life on a fence. You, at a certain point, you have to decide and think, what do I feel and think about these things? And ultimately that extends into things much further beyond that, which is you're going to have children. You're going to have to think about what values you instill, not only in your children, but what you would want to be representative of. And you can't go through life just thinking that none of this shit matters, because it does. And everything, minusculely, yes, because everything is ultimately a grain of sand in a massive pile, but every grain ultimately still does make up the heap. I don't want to, lecture you guys. Here's the rest of the clip.
In contrast with the Candace interview, it wasn't a gotcha, wasn't anything like that. We talked about my life. We talked about politics. We talked about Israel, the whole changing conversation. Told some stories I haven't told before. So check that out. That was on YouTube today. Raw Talk with Bradley Martyn. It is up on YouTube. I hope they keep it up. You got to tune in now because I don't know. You know how it goes with some of these platforms. I think it's getting better, but it's up there right now. Raw Talk with Bradley Martyn just came up today, and it got great viewership. The premiere had 12,000 people watching live. It got up to 100,000 views very quickly. So,
dude, I was so nervous because I was in the middle of making my last video when I got the news that the interview dropped. And I literally sat there and I was like, bro, did I just spend a whole day making this video? And it's not going to do well because everyone's going to be watching the Bradley Martyn video. And I was like, no way. And ultimately it still did well. It had a good enough time gap there. But yeah, it's still up there. And it still is. And glad for it too as well. And that's one thing as well. I think this whole fear of hosting Fuentes and that, you can't have him on YouTube is gone. I think ultimately without giving an explicit statement from YouTube, I think they're okay with him being on the platform again. Maybe not him holding his own show, but him staying in this kind of very civil format while honoring, the guest's platform. That's where they'll kind of let it slide. I think that's where they'll let it sit at. Which is a good thing, right? This is kind of, again, the ramp into the mainstream, which I thought we were going to get a bit more of that from Candace Owens and Ian Carroll. Ian Carroll's still kind of undecided on, but Candace Owens is ultimately like, dude, she's just batshit crazy. Let's just be honest. And I really do hope that she wins the case against Macron. I ultimately, like, I would never root for Emmanuel Macron. But it's just sad to see that kind of, consume somebody's soul. I missed one in here. I apologize. I saw one from Punish Mav. Where'd you go?
Cowpoke Ranch has donated $5 and says none of these problems will exist in 10 years. Humanity is about to be systematically annihilated by big tech oligarchs and AI. And we let it happen.
Yes, Cowpoke Ranch. Apologize. I thought you were one of the other regulars in here. But that is, that is one of the realities is the exponential growth of AI and what that'll look like, what industries will be affected. And and I think we kind of already dodged a major bullet, which was that clause in the big beautiful bill, largely, which was going to centralize all AI oversight and regulation into one federal agency for 10 years, which on its surface is just like, that is insane, especially when it was on the back of Palantir being given an $800 million contract from the Department of Defense. And so I think you just look at that and you go, there's no way. There's just no way. This is clearly like you're handing the keys to AI to Peter Thiel, who, many would say is probably the Antichrist. And I'm sure many of you probably saw that clip too, where they're asking him, are you the Antichrist? And he's like smiling. He's like, well, could I? No, and it's like super weird, and it's like that's an odd reaction to being called the Antichrist. But here's the rest of Nick here.
It's blowing up. Make sure to check that one out because that one was a special one. And he loved it. I loved it. We were talking about it. The feedback was so positive in the comments. And to me, the best comments are people that say, I hated this guy because of what the media told me. Then I watched this, and now I don't know what to think because he comes off really smart. And some people say, I don't even agree with him, but he's well-spoken. I understand what he's saying now. That's kind of my favorite thing because honestly, for as long as I've been doing the show, of course, I'm trying to persuade people. I'm making my case. I'm making these arguments. And so obviously I want people on my side. I want to draw people in. At the same time, though, so much of the battle has really just been for a level playing field. And as you know, and I'm not trying to play the world's smallest violin, but it wasn't just the censorship and the industry blacklisting, but it was also just the lying. People always portraying me as like ontologically evil. And I said this to Nelk. I do a talk show. Netanyahu has 35 standing ovations in Congress, and he's a war criminal. He like kills kids.
You know, they give anything, it does show the stranglehold that the media does have over the narrative. And you can see it's exhibited with just so many different ways. And, you know, that's basically kind of the concept here. He was going to, you know, continue on. But the idea ultimately being that if you were to ever say anything about Nick Fuentes, what did it come with? Well, what like it comes with Andrew Tate and many others that have this attachment, there's a preamble. You have to say, well, while I don't agree with him and I do think this about him and I do think this about him and I do think this about him, he did say this one thing about this one thing that I kind of agree with slightly that he's, and it's like, because they had poisoned the well so bad, he was radioactive material, untouchable. And for a lot of people who, you know, like a Bradley Martyn, for example, like he's all about fitness and just culture stuff. Like, I mean, it would be suicide for him to put the guy on, you know, a few years ago. And so that's, you know, ultimately they did it. They put the fear of God into people. And then ultimately, you know, there were people that had consequences. You know, you put certain videos of him up, your channel's gone, demonetized, and boom, obscured into society. And this is something I kind of talked about on the last solo stream I had, which is, you know, this has actually been going on for such a long time that the majority of normies and lefties, a lot of them, they don't even know what a true far-right position is, because they've convinced the mass majority of people that where Donald Trump is at is the far right. And that's like what, loving gays and blacks? That's their idea of the far right? Like really? Like finding 110 different ways to not do mass deportations? Like that's the far right? In the bed, it completely in bed with Israel. That's the far right. It's like, and so you have to understand too, like there is, to go from no, Donald Trump's not the far right. Actually, there's people, and a lot of them that are way further down the line from these positions, who do wholeheartedly believe in things like pro-white and being, you know, segregated or separated, whatever you want to go with. They can't cross that bridge. They think you're lying to them. The average person just goes, oh, there's no way. And that's where it's at, right? It's like that's the actual truth. And that's why you're getting so many of these memes of they have no idea what's coming. They have no idea what's coming. You see it with the Call of Duty Ghost guy. They have no idea what's coming. This kind of silent acknowledgement that there is a large group of the youth and young men, and some women too, that can see it, feel it, and know it. And everyone else is entirely unaware. Now, there are some that are aware, and they're the ones that are screaming about the anti-Semites constantly every day and night on X. But that's about it. And a lot of normal people just see that and they go, okay, I don't care about a foreign country, and they walk away from it. So that's kind of where we're at there. But okay, hard segue though. Covered a bit of Nick. We might get into Nick at the end if we have time. Hard segue into the featured story of today, which is going to be a bit more about the new revelations with Epstein. And so I think where I will start with that will be Trump's change of tune over the reason why he severed ties with Epstein. So where we had initially, when it was at some point on Tuesday, I believe, so a couple of days ago, that Donald Trump came out and he gave the reasoning for why he severed ties with Epstein. And it was because, and now what originally was said was that Epstein was creepy. He creeped him out, and that's why he cut ties, and he kicked him out of Mar-a-Lago, can't come back. This Tuesday, what he said was it was because Epstein was convincing the women who worked for Trump at Mar-a-Lago to work for him instead. So basically said, and this is an article you can find, I believe, in New York Times as well as Politico. that he basically said that he warned him. And after he warned Epstein, Epstein did it again. And so he was like, okay, now you're out. So then he was actually specifically asked about Virginia Giuffre, and God rest her soul. She took her life this last April. Again, being one of the more vocal accusers of Epstein, willing to come forward and testify and put her face out there. And there was a series of strange events that even led up to that too. There was she was hit and ran over by a bus. And there's that famous photo of her with a big bruised face. And they didn't expect her to make it very long. She did ultimately survive that, but then it, ended up taking her life. And I think most people on the surface can kind of, throw that to being depressed, a victim, no one believes you. And when you see what's going on at the top, you're like, oh, the president we just voted in is with these guys too. This is over. That's probably where her head was at. And so, but Trump said when he was asked about Virginia Giuffre, was Virginia Giuffre, I believe the question was, did she work for you or was she at Mar-a-Lago? Or was she one of the girls that Epstein took from you? And Trump says, quote, I think so. I think that was one of the people. And then so beyond that, he's onboarding Air Force One, and these reporters are following him still. He says again, the reason the relationship soured is because he was stealing workers. So the quote following that on board Air Force One is, well, because the reporter asked him again, wasn't this because he was a creep? Now you're saying it's because he was taking your workers? Trump says, well, and quote, direct quote, well, maybe they're the same thing. Sort of a little bit of the same thing. He took people that worked for me and I told him don't do it anymore. And he did it. So I said, stay the hell out of here. That doesn't sound like, to me, that he kicked Epstein out for being creepy. It sounds like to me that Epstein was ultimately pulling Trump's pimps from Mar-a-Lago and that pissed Trump off. That's what that sounds like to me. So there's that. That's kind of like the first kind of change of revelation, change of narrative here we have here. So then what we have following that is it turns out that Virginia Giuffre's family responds to this because this is news to them. Then we do find out, and it's confirmed, Virginia did work at Mar-a-Lago in the summer of 2000. When, can anybody guess how old Virginia was when she worked at Mar-a-Lago in 2000? She was 16 years old. So the 16-year-old Virginia Giuffre, while she was working a job at Mar-a-Lago like that, maybe it was some kind of, high-paying opportunity, but they catch wind of Trump's statements, and they said it shocked them, because this is news to them. They're going like, what is this? They're saying not only does it make them question everything about how much Trump knows about Jeffrey, but they were saying like, we deserve answers. Like, this is insane. And I can't even imagine being in the position of a parent who you believe to have been abused at the highest level by a cabal like that everyone's trying to hide. I can't put myself in those shoes because I would be in jail if something like that happened to my daughter. That'd be where I would be at. Oh, I missed a super chat or whatever this is. It's like a sticker.
Romeo Kid has donated 99 cents and says,
That's awesome. I didn't even know you could do that. Thank you for the sticker. My wife will appreciate the cat. But needless to say, though, this is again another development here. And like in 2020, it was money printer go burr. Right now in 2025, it is the L printer is going burr. We cannot get enough L or fell for it again awards. So then this is actually extended because we get another bombshell, which was a corroboration from the Daily Beast. Again, I don't trust them very much. From a CBS News investigation. Again, don't trust them very much. And always take this with a grain of salt when it comes from these left-wing publications. There is that. So here's what they said in their investigation. And this report was even from AF Post. You can find it on X, dropped like about an hour or two ago. CBS News investigation uncovers jailhouse footage from Epstein's final night that reveals there was a previously unidentified third person on camera. So the individual was never identified. They weren't referenced in the DOJ's investigative report, but they're visible. Forgive me, I apologize. And so from there, we have the individual enters the common area around Epstein's cell around like 4 a.m. And this had been on August 10th in 2019. So it's about 2 hours before Epstein dies because they find him around 6:30 in the morning. So that's the first inconsistency, which I believe it was from the Inspector General's report, says that the last movement towards the special housing unit, which they keep deterring, it's SHU. If you see SHU, it's special housing unit. They said the last movement towards Epstein's cell and unit was at 10:40. But 4 a.m. is a lot further along than, 10:40 p.m. And so, this is following suit with the fact that we have no videos. Okay, we do have videos. Oh, but it turns out the video is actually facing this weird angle that you can't actually see into the unit because it stops at the staircase. So from the angle of the footage, you can't tell if Epstein goes to his cell or he leaves the special housing unit because the exit's also through the same doorway. And so again, all these things they don't tell you or they don't outline because obviously it would kind of begin to poke holes that this transparency they're trying to give the appearance of that we all know they don't have. And so additionally, not only is this guy getting in this common area that they said that doesn't show up in the report, the door that he comes through, the reporting leading up to that point was that one of the 2 security guards that was in there would have had to have let him in because it physically requires a key. But if you watch the footage, and you can find it again on CBS News Investigations, it might be archived now at this point. What you see though is neither of the guards move and the door opens. So how did this person get in? It clearly couldn't be what they're saying in the report, which is that it was a person doing their laundry, because why would a person doing their laundry have access to there if anyone else would need a key from the guard? So again, more inconsistencies. Now, you have that first one, right? You have the angles of the video camera. You have, again, the video itself with the editing portion. We have, I believe, multiple places have come out now who do this kind of forensic detailing. And they see not only is the metadata show that it's been saved multiple times, they can see there's multiple save points here in the metadata. They can also see that it turns out there's a noticeable cursor on screen at different points. One's like hovering on a trash can at some point. It makes it, with that contrast, you can see it very well. You go from there's no footage to we lost the footage to there is footage, and then the footage that we get is clearly doctored. The minute was missing. And on the minute missing, that's what I found in this report that was kind of the wild. Because CBS reported in this same report that an official told them that the Bureau of Prisons and the Inspector General's office both are in possession of the full unedited copies of the video, and neither of them have the minute missing. So I thought that was kind of a piece of gold buried in that report. So that and would imply then, and on top of that too, beyond that, furthermore, they're also saying that there are other cameras, there are other feeds that they've not released yet. And the reason they know that is because in the Inspector General's report, there's a screen grab from the other camera feed in there. So there's still footage we've not gotten that could help provide a more comprehensive analysis of like who would have been going in and out of these ways. And I believe it's 2 different feeds, and the one specific feed is the elevator bay. It's directed at the elevator bay. And I think they argue in there that if they had that full 12-hour footage too, they could at least corroborate if anybody would have left the SHU. So again, just so much of this is like just, if you just dig a little bit and look deep into you just spend like I did, like 20 minutes reading the article, you're like, that's insane. That's just like not even matching anything from like a Nick Sortor or a Charlie Kirk or a, insert any, MAGA conservatard pundit here. They're not saying any of that. And we're moving on. Forget it even happened, guys. Who cares? It's ridiculous, dude. And so those inconsistencies were just crazy. And that was, I kind of buried it in there, and it's not as big as a normal kind of featured story would be. But those pieces are ridiculous. And so you can find it, again, AF Post, as he reported it, they linked the archive link to the Daily Beast article on it. But from the Daily Beast article, you can actually click on the hyperlink to the original CBS News article. Definitely go and look at that if you don't believe me. It's all in there. And it's astonishing that the only reason I know about it is because I had to physically go look myself. That's crazy. So again, featured story there. Obviously, Donald Trump is covering up for not only just pedophiles, but the intelligence apparatus that controls everything, which is largely backed and is in the element of, Jewish power. That is what we are dealing with. And that is obviously draws the anti-Semitism accusations for anybody if you begin to even point out the oddness of the disparity there. I hope I didn't miss a super chat. I feel like I did. If I did, I apologize, guys. But this is funny from Donnie.
Donnie Brook has donated $5 and says, please say EA Sports, it's in the game.
Okay, give me a second. EA Sports, it's in the game. Tell me if I did good or not, or if it was too loud. I don't know if I could. My wife would probably want me to do Kratos or somebody and be the new God of War guy. But that's kind of the featured story. I feel like I'm forgetting something major I wanted to say about that. And I think the key thing though is, the key thing that I wanted to say with this is this would be my prediction. If I was to say book market, right? Put book market. If I was to ever give a prediction, this is one that I am very strongly of the belief of. I do believe a lot of this postulating and this kind of unorthodox sentiment and statements and positioning from Donald Trump is an opening to allow JD Vance to come in early in the primaries and go, I would have handled the Epstein files differently. Here's how I would have done it. I do expect that it will open this lane for JD Vance to present himself as like the I'll do it right. I'll do it the right way, to probably bleed the last bit of life out of what remains from the Maga movement. That would be my prediction, and expect to see that probably not now, but in a year and a half, 2 years from now. Watch for how JD Vance on two ends not only just aligns himself closer to Peter Thiel, but distances himself from Donald Trump and reverts to where he was pre, being the Wonder Boy who was, endorsed by Donald Trump before he won his Senate seat. If you want to know a little bit more about the Peter Thiel connections, you can look at my video. Nick Fuentes exposes JD Vance. You can find that there. It looks like I did a good job. You guys liked it. That's funny. 7 out of 10. Ban that guy. No, I'm just kidding. That's funny. Punished Mav. Okay.
Punished Mav has
one.
donated $2 and says, please do a boy in your Kratos voice.
I'm trying to think. It's been a minute since I played the game. Boy. I don't know if I can do that one as well. It's been a minute since I played the game. And he's got some very crispiness in his voice. I saw the voice actor who plays Kratos for the first time in a long time, and he's wild. He's like extremely like Polynesian. He looks Chinese a little bit. He looks like Attila the Hun. That's what he looks like. Massive dude. But thank you. I've seen multiple messages like
The
this
Rock
too.
Breaker
Thank you guys.
says,
I appreciate it very much.
Just found your channel. Keep fighting the good fight.
I appreciate it very much. Thank you guys. And obviously, and again, like I said at the beginning, I'm an amateur. I'm new to this. I'm trying to take it one day at a time. Try not to do anything dumb, trying to obviously, do things that's, not going to put my family at risk as well too. And I need to get a hold of somebody to talk about that, because I'm not sure what the right steps are, in terms of like protecting yourself. That way you don't get doxxed or anything along those lines. But thank you guys for the support. It means the world to me. I can't explain to you how exciting it has been the last couple months to see some growth in this direction. But I guess one thing I would wanted to say a little bit about too was that the Attorney General did back down from Arval on the Return to the Land project, which is a major positive, and it is one of the things that I would love to be able to talk to Casey about, because Casey is a black female. And she's on our side of the space, right? She puts out a bunch of pro Nick Fuentes videos. And I would love to know like what her thoughts are, as a black woman, what goes through your head when you hear that they're pushing for a whites only community, right? You know, and obviously it'd be cool to do something like the Hodge twins, but I think that'd be a great center of the topic to have an interview with her. And ultimately, I do think the AG was probably told to back down because they knew if he would take it to the Supreme Court, they were going to get a federal ruling that would have major impacts in ways that, you know, the global homo jihad would not desire, if you will. And so I think I got, oh, you guys want to hear the voice moderator? The people say I have a voice moderator on. You want to hear the voice moderator? I have the soundboard over here. Let me turn it on. This is what I would sound like.
This is what I would sound like with a voice moderator on. If I wanted to do a deep voice, I might have a couple other.
I think this is like chipmunk voice.
I'm not sure this voice is.
I don't know what this one is.
I think this is a robot.
So maybe I should just start all my videos with like a deep voice modulator on. So when I turn it off, everybody's like, oh, okay, that's like a normal sounding voice. I get it all the time. It is. You know, and on that end, though, one thing I will say too, you know, it's not just YouTube comments. It's been a blessing and a curse for a couple of reasons. I mean, largely a blessing. I've gotten this my whole life. You know, I bartended for 10 years. I got it all the time. And one thing that really did kind of, I guess, like open my eyes a little bit to some of this, like, you know, side note on like the white self-hatred was the majority of the people who like had a negative response to it, which was, you know, on the lines of like, is that your real voice? Why does your voice sound like that? Why are you faking your voice? It's like, I mean, like, I don't know what the response is to that. Like, this is just like how I sound. And so it was weird to see that there were so many guys, because as a server, you know, I talk to people all the time. There were so many men who just like, a deep voice for a white guy is like unthinkable. Whereas, you know, if Shaq walks in and he starts talking, no one blinks an eye. And so it's like on that note, it's like, have we really kind of moved? Do we think so little of ourselves that a white man having a deep voice is like trying to sound black or like it must be fake? It's like, you know, I made a post on X about this the other day because it bothered me so bad, but it just like, it is kind of sad, you know, when you kind of look at it in that framing. But enough about me, because I hate talking about myself in my voice. I don't want to sound arrogant. You know, Return to the Land, obviously big success, and a big one at that happened outside the political realm. And I was kind of also rooting. I was so hoping that they would take it to the Supreme Court, because just to see how people were going to treat Thomas Clarence, right? Getting the Uncle Tom treatment for ruling for freedom of association. You know, obviously I wouldn't want him to get targeted, but to see that kind of play out would have been a cool thing. So let's go to the Nick Candace beef, if you will, because it is in full form from earlier today. It's actually hilarious. So I'm going to go to the tweet that set it off, and we'll go through the responses. But I'll put it on screen so you guys can see it. Maybe I got to make it a little bit bigger too. Probably do. I made my preview a bit smaller to save some CPU on my computer, and it looks like it's helping a good bit. So it looks like it's probably perfect. So Nick writes, why is Candace Owens trying to rehabilitate Harvey Weinstein? She flamed out of Daily Wire for taking a stand against Israel, but now she uses her platform to defend a Democrat pervert with ties to Israeli intelligence? So weird. So she responds, I don't know. Didn't she say I was likely funded by Russia through the Tate brothers? Can't lie. It was definitely Putin that made me tell you that marriage was aspirational. Dude, they're still on it about marriage. Vladimir hits me up on WhatsApp and asks me to do the most random things, LOL. So she's clearly pissed, and I think she's been pissed since the day that interview happened. Forgive me. So Nick writes, so your answer is I don't know? I'm not the only one wondering why you would use your platform to rehabilitate a Mossad-connected Democrat pervert. Candace writes again, this just keeps going. But just last week, I was tagged in a clip of you claiming it was Russia that was backing me. Do you think it's the Mossad now? The Israelis say it's Qatar that's funding me, so at this point, I really don't know. It looks like First Class Clips responded, to be honest, there's a chance you are peddling a bunch of BS because you're not as smart as you think you are. And she says also an option. So I think he responds to this one too. Maybe not. Maybe he didn't respond any further. But she has multiple responses in there. Obviously dodges the question. And this beef is reaching, levels I really wish it wouldn't. But maybe it has to happen. I was ultimately kind of the mindset that I think that it would be best that we are allies, and I think on those ends, I think Ian Carroll and Candace Owens do appeal a bit more to the normies. I think it's kind of Nick Fuentes appeals very well. Don't get me wrong, dude. Guy is one of the greatest speakers of our generation, right? Like that, the amount of work it took for him to nail the act, in the way that he does, is like, you can't, that's a combination of talent and hard work. It can't be understated. But at the same time, you can't also just blink and forget about how much poison is in the well surrounding him. And so I think on those ends, you do have to have who are like the gateway drugs to Nick Fuentes, if you will, right? And I think Ian Carroll is a good representation of that. I think Candace Owens, less so, but is still a representation of that. And I'm probably forgetting a few people as well too. But I think Candace, she's gonna have to lay in the bed that she made. That interview was abysmal. It was awful, and I think it exemplified, a lot of just things that I believe in Andrew Wilson for, which is this covert feminism, the way that just this constant trying to play this egalitarian spin of like, oh, I submit to my husband, but here I'm going to tell you as a random man to do this thing that I didn't do myself on marriage. And like, it's just a big joke. But I would imagine that we might see tonight, we're probably going to see Nick Fuentes absolutely spike Candace Owens tonight, if he streams tonight, which I don't know if he will. And I'll probably ultimately be the topic of the video I end up making in a couple of days or tomorrow. And so moving from there, another smaller topic is the fact that our ideas are winning, and it's obvious that the ideas are winning. So you guys are probably aware of this because it's been all over the internet, but Sydney Sweeney has been doing a couple of different ads, and it was about her good genes. And everyone is calling it a Nazi propaganda. A white, blonde-haired woman with blue eyes being proud of what she looks like is Nazi propaganda. Now, there was a couple other ones. She did one with, I can't remember the name of it. It's like some what is it called, dude? It's like bathware, bath and body, something like that. What did you call it? It's a Hey Dude ad. Lord, forgive me. I could not remember what it was. But it was a Hey Dude ad. So she did two of them. The one was with American Eagle. The second one was with Hey Dude. Both of them are talking about being proud of her appearance. The one going a little bit further than that. Now, there was also one from a guy. I forgot it on the screen. There's also one from a guy. And the one from the guy was, I believe, is from Dunkin' Donuts. And he's very similar. He doesn't say good genes. He said something like, I'm proud of my genetics or something along those lines. And so it's clear that we now have corporations that are also unafraid of adopting this because probably more than likely they want to make some money and they know that this will sell. But here's the clip. It's just short. This is the Hey Dude ones. This isn't even the one that's like going majorly viral.
You can take the dude out of the country. You can't take the country out of the dude.
So this one has a lot less of any of these ridiculous leftoids are spurging out about, which is that it's Nazi propaganda, right? And that's basically it. You see a white person happy, proud of who they are and their heritage, and immediately, they have to give the tag Nazi because when you apply the tag Nazi, that gives the justification for beating the fucking shit out of that person. That is it. It's the same way when you go, well, you see in the comments, right? You saw with the Cincinnati video with the wife or the lady or the girlfriend, whatever she was, beaten on the ground. Extreme violence. She's getting assaulted in the street by a mob of blacks. And most people are going, well, did she say the N-word? Oh, really? Did she say the N-word? Oh, because if she did, she deserves to have what just happened to her, be mauled by a pack of literal animals in the street of Cincinnati. No, that's not it, right? And this goes into a bit more of like where we were at with the Shallow Hendricks. A lot of these black people will say, well, freedom of speech doesn't mean freedom of consequence. And it's like, well, if the idea is that you're going to have a socially acceptable caveat for when violence is allowed, if people have certain opinions they don't agree with or say things that you say they aren't allowed to say, it's technically still not free speech by any definition. However, though, that's kind of the point, which is they have to give these tags, they have to spam these tags and slap them onto these people because they are basically giving a hall pass for anyone to say the worst things about it, the most evil things about it, and openly just talk about how you would want to, harm them in these different ways. And it's acceptable because, oh, wow, they're a Nazi. Or, oh, he said the N-word. Okay, who cares if he got beat to death? And that's the game. And so that's part of like the semantics here and the reason why they are so intent on using these labels, but on the back end, they're burning the candle on both ends. Now the words ultimately don't mean anything. They mean so little now. It's just like it really is. And so that was just one bit. And so we do have Gad Saad's response to this. And so I think I should have pulled this up here too. He writes, as a Lebanese Jew, this level of Nazism is scary. And so he's saying that to this one, which didn't even have anything about the genes in it. It's, again, they hate you. They hate you. It's just veiled behind a few different things that if you just take about 20 minutes to understand, you'll realize. And the majority of the way that they treat these things, the way that the stories develop, are done in a way to basically build the sentiment up that it is not acceptable to tear down this person and say violent things about them. It's very disgusting. And another story, which I think, wow, shocker, going to the trade deal with Canada, and I was watching outside the Overton for quite a bit earlier today, and they were covering this, and I think Nick Fuentes covered this a good bit too, because they ended up having, what was it? What was I going to say? Oh, he was talking about how France was one of the first ones, like one of these big powers out of the UN, in the Europe, to recognize Palestinian statehood. And then what ends up happening is you have, forgive me, it was France, then the UK, and then I believe it was a series of other countries, right? Then it ended up being, it was like Portugal, man, I'm drawing a blank, but there's a bunch of other countries that came out and said it too. And then Canada also said it today as well. And then what you end up getting is this True Social from Donald Trump, and I'll put it on screen now. If I can slide it over. Let me get rid of some of these tabs here. This is from Owen Troyer, but here's the True Social from Donald Trump, and it reads, wow, Canada has just announced that it is backing statehood for Palestine. That will make it very hard for us to make a trade deal with them. Oh, Canada. So then you can see here on the right-hand side, well, I'll back it out. Owen writes, sounds like Trump is willing to sabotage a good trade deal with Canada on behalf of Israel. Now, once again, this is why I brought up Trump's law, which is, in short, if it does not benefit Israel or if it is not at the behest of Israel, Donald Trump will not do it. And I did see that argument from CSY. Some people also said that as well too. They do think it's some positioning because a lot of these countries are also majority Muslim. Let me put that on screen here.
$Y says, it's because France is majority Muslim.
There are a few guys who think it's also not that meaningful in the big picture as well too. But I think no matter what, the way when you look at it is very isolating, right? It's beginning that all of these bigger powers in the world are counter signaling the United States for what is our most toxic domestic issue, which it's not even domestic, but it is, inside for us. And from there, though, I wanted to go to a couple other posts here because, Laura Loomer has to give her, her royal Junus has to come out and make these ridiculous statements. But Matt Walsh was pretty spot on this. And, obviously everybody knows how I feel about Matt. But he writes, this is ridiculous. If a trade deal with Canada is beneficial to the American people, then it should go forward regardless of Canada's stance on Palestine. The benefit of the American people should be the guiding principle here. And that is the truth. That is the truth, and it should. But that's not what we're getting. And so I wanted to go here because here comes your loyal Junus. Canada is our neighbor, Laura Loomer. Canada is our neighbor on the northern border. Yada, 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 a bunch of yapping here, blah, 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 yapping, yapping, I love Jews. And so then Owen responds, and so he writes, this makes no sense. Recognizing Palestine as a state will keep them there. Once Israel takes it, they will be forced to relocate into the West, as it's already been said. Canada's foreign policy on this should not affect our trade deals. But again, I don't think anyone's shocked at this. I think, if anything, this is perfectly in alignment with what we have come to expect. It is MAGA. This is not MAGA, this is MAGA. We are getting nothing. We're not going to get mass deportations. The war in Ukraine is only getting worse. It's escalating. The war with Iran and Israel is escalating. You have, I believe, Russia recently told Iran, as of like yesterday or earlier today, to be prepared for imminent U.S. strikes again. You know, we're not getting the Epstein list. And basically all we've gotten is a release of MLK files and women not in men's sports that even half the states aren't even honoring at that. So it's like, you know, and, you know, I had a couple people, you know, comment too. They're like talking about winning and, you know, and because they're on the Charlie Kirk and Nick Fuentes level. And I just don't get it because it's like, what have we gotten? Right now, there is an argument on the GDP aspect with the tariffs and the, you know, the trade wars and the tariff stuff. There is an argument to be had that there is some, you know, goodness in the GDP, but again, that doesn't. How does that help feed or nurture the soul of a white man whose life has otherwise kind of been taken from him? It doesn't, you know. And so when you kind of compare it to like, well, how does that actually really help us for what we really kind of want? Oh, it doesn't. Oh, okay. So this is kind of like a meaningless victory that, you know, helps some people, but really not anyone. And so it's just, okay. Like, and some people are still behind them, and, you know, and yeah, some people are just in a cult and some people are just retarded and they need help. You know, and that's just kind of where I'm at with it. You know, it sucks, you know, and I think this, you know, and I think people immediately want to go to the dichotomy of, you know, would you rather have had Kamala? And it's like, well, you know, I don't know at this point anymore. You know, I at the same time, it's like, I would have wanted whatever would have resulted in Hitler 2.0 as fast as possible. Whatever that takes. Maybe I got it wrong, right? Maybe I shouldn't have. But I think that's ultimately what we need, right? Because I think, again, Zeb Boykin from Outside the Overton is spot on. There is no conservative policy that is going to save us in the situation we're in right now. There is no libertarian position and policy that will save us from the situation we are in right now. There is no democratic or progressive or anarchist position. None of that will save us right now, right? And I think it is to say, you know, way more problems require certain kind of solutions. And I just think that's where we're at, right? And this is kind of where I have a lot of the posting of GLR. And, you know, I listened to some of his archived old speeches and he's so spot on. You know, Republicans and conservatives just do not reach or touch the hearts of young men and women. They don't. They fail so badly on social issues. They do such a poor job of, you know, demonstrating why these are values that should be had. And obviously, you know, I think the post-war consensus and the propaganda campaign and the censorship apparatus have a lot of hand to play in the situation that we find ourselves in. But again, it's hard not to be sad, and it's hard not to go back and listen to those speeches. And definitely, if you haven't, make sure you do listen to these old GLR speeches, right? George Lincoln Rockwell, the guy is very spot on with a lot of the things that he saw. And it's a shame that we didn't listen to him a bit sooner, especially with his problems with the conservative party. And you know, in the lack of willpower and fight for Christian conservative values. He was pitching some heaters, man. He had some good ones. Peace out. Jesus Story and Talmud. That name is crazy. So another piece we get is, you know, Peter Thiel that it's unlikely that Epstein worked with Mossad. Wow, thanks, Antichrist. So that was another story there. Then you have the development too, with we get the development from the story in Cincinnati, which it turns out that the guy's only going to get a $400 fine. Right, this woman's face is entirely beat in, only going to end up getting a $400 fine. So let me go to this bit from Owen Schroyer here. So here we are. And so this is going to be a little bit graphic, but this is the image of the woman who was beaten, right? Her face is just destroyed. And so what you end up getting from that is that the guy who gets charged for it, $400 bail. $400 bail. Now, I'm not sure the full extent of his charges, but I do think Owen's point here is entirely correct, right? What would happen if a man did this to his wife? Would he be out on $400 bail? Would local politicians be blaming the woman? Also, I do apologize. I feel like I missed somebody's super chat earlier, and if I did, I'm very sorry. I'd meant to click on it earlier. I got on a rant and a ramble. Apologize. Yeah, $400 bond. Thank you, House. Appreciate it. It's okay because the guy is black. But this is what I mean, right? There is no conservative policy that solves this. Right? What conservative policy solves this? I mean, I'm just being quite frank. Like there just simply is not. This is, and it's been happening. It's been happening nonstop. And now, and part of it too, part of the issue is now, like, and you guys see it, right? You see how they'll put these Venezuelans in, they'll put these, they'll put these blacks in jail, white. And so when we have years and years of probably fudge data, right? Even with FBI statistics, local police numbers, because they don't want to appear racist, right? They don't want to be under the purview of the DEI and at the height of cancel culture. You can't even really trust the numbers. And that's part of the issue too, is like in so many of this, right? With the Epstein files and the chain of custody, with crime statistics, you have so many of these people fudging the numbers too. And that's built on top of, on a system that basically tells you, don't believe your lying eyes. And people are done with it. There's no more telling me to not believe my lying eyes anymore. There's no more, me willing to watch another video of a woman getting drugged in the street because she said a word that black people can't handle. And I don't even give them the accusation because I don't even know if it's been proven that she said any of that. I don't even know what the argument was about. Truth be told. But if they say it, it's believable because she's white. Well, now everybody in the world goes, well, she got what she deserved. What the fuck are you talking about? But this doesn't get, and I think, P&W Gorilla said it best, man. White men learn to tribalize or die. Tribalize or die. We have to move to having stronger in-group preferences. That's just the way it is. Not to get on too much of a tangent on that, but I did want to cover that there too. So to end it, I have two bits here. One, I have a great take from Nick on marriage. I thought that'd be a cool thing to end with as well too. And I also have a leftist reacting to this kind of generational run from Nick Fuentes. So two things here, just kind of end on some reaction stuff there as well. But this stream has been a major success. Appreciate it greatly. Oh, everybody's saying she didn't say it. So yeah, there we go. Even worse. So we'll have some of these two reactions we'll go to, and then I'll probably end up signing off as well. But the community edition of the day, and shout out to House AI. You can find him in the Discord. One of the moderators here, one of my top dogs. The guy's intelligent, he's smarter than I am. He put a piece in our Discord that a lot of people aren't even aware of who Ghislaine Maxwell's sister is. But I didn't want to spoil that here. If you want to know more about that story, join the Discord. You can find the link. It should be in the description. If it's not, I'm sure one of the mods can put it in here before too long. Or you can probably go to one of the older videos that I have. Look for the description. You'll find a Discord link in there. So if you want to know who Ghislaine Maxwell's sister is and her involvement, join the Discord. House put a little story in there from the WEF forum, or the World Economic Forum, I should say. It's pretty enlightening there. So the first one is, here's Nick's take on marriage. Now, I'm unsure of how old this is. It seems like a slightly older clip, but it is from Fuentes Updates, a largely very quickly growing Clipper account on X. And he does a fantastic job. Forgive me if I can pull it up. I thought I did. But here this is. And so this is kind of his take on marriage. And so this is where I'm at. I don't know if maybe I could articulate better, but I doubt it. This is exactly where I'm at with marriage. So I'm going to let this clip play out in its entirety. I know we're kind of bouncing around everywhere. But I just wanted to, just cover a couple things that I found really important. And I think this is important because, amidst a lot of the co-opting that's going to happen as the right wing continues to move and develop and evolve, we have to make sure that we can avoid the co-opting of the polygamy bros, right? Which is like the Tate bros. And it's not to say I don't enjoy them when they're funny or don't find them charismatic or right. I don't want our movement to not be anything but Christian. That's what I want first and foremost, is I want the movement to be Christian. I want the Christian values we put in back into society, right? Christian. But that being said, here's Nick's take on marriage and his kind of nuanced position between where Matt Walsh is at and where Andrew Tate is at.
Your take on trans versus states was perfect. Question: if A guy has the balls to assert patriarchy, i.e. having authority, B, the woman is able to submit, then it is then good to be married? Not naive that this is rare these days, but I'm looking to be the exception. Asking in good faith. Your takes are the best I've heard.
Yeah, obviously. I'm still pro-marriage. I still believe people should get married. I don't think people should indulge in polygamy or any of that other stuff. But you just got to be careful. That's all I'm saying. Unlike other people, I'm not going to tell you, hey, man, just go and get married and just let it rip. I mean, no, it's a big decision. It's a long-term commitment. It has implications and consequences for your life. You need to make a well-thought-out, careful decision. It is irresponsible in this climate to tell young men, hey, man, just have more kids than you can afford and just get married young. That is irresponsible. It may go well, it might not. And if it goes badly, it will fuck up not only your life, but the life of your children. I mean, ask that guy in Texas who lost his kid because his wife wanted to turn the kid trans. Ask him.
Which I will. I don't know if I've been very vocal about this. I have been in the Discord. Me and Jeff Younger are mutuals. We follow each other on X. I've been a big fan of his for some time. At some point soon, you guys can expect I will interview Jeff Younger on YouTube here soon. I just want to throw that out there while he had mentioned it.
Ask him how, getting married and all that goes. Sometimes it doesn't work out, and it has dire consequences for you and your family, and it is life-ruining. And people say, well, whatever. I mean, no, it's not whatever. You need to engage in long-term planning if you are going to have a shot at succeeding and surviving in the world. The world is a cruel, miserable place, and you can get ahead if you are smart. But if you are a sucker and you allow yourself to believe hypocrites who tell you, do one thing but not this, you say a lot about me. I'm not a hypocrite. My advice to young men is don't rush into it. Think about it. And I'm candid with you about my struggle to even desire marriage for that matter. But you have these people like Charlie Kirk, they say, get married young, have more kids than you can afford. He got married after he made millions of dollars into his 30s. And people go, oh, I'm just going to take what he said because, I really believe in the cause and I'm just going to do it. It could really mess you up. So I am very pro-marriage, extremely pro-marriage. I think everyone should get married and have kids. I would like to, but you got to be careful. You got to be careful out there. And Candace Owens, she gave me a hard time about it. She said, well, it's selfish for you not to get married. She got married when she was 29 on a Zoom call with the guy she knew for 2 weeks, and he was worth $200 million, and he's the son of a British lord. So it's like, yeah, if you can find an arrangement like that, maybe it's worth it. If all these guys out there, if you can marry a girl with $200 million in an arranged ceremony when you're 30, yeah, knock yourself out. When you're a millionaire and she's a millionaire and she comes from money and you're famous and 30, yeah, like if you want to do what she does, I think everyone would say that's a pretty safe bet. But for all these broke 18-year-olds who have no job prospects and home ownership is out of reach and women are feminists and you can't trust them, and men are hormonal and don't make good decisions at a young age, not the best idea necessarily.
Especially in this current makeup, and truth be told, and major shout out to him too. Like thank God there's like at least one voice out there that's not this usher man into an early death like Matt Walsh and Charlie Kirk that say just get married and you're an idiot if you can't spot red flags. Like, I really wish that I really wish that Jeff Younger could have a debate with Matt Walsh, because Jeff Younger would fucking wipe the floor with that guy. And if that's his thing too, and you got to think about it as well. I mean, put into perspective, how long have we known that family court has this extreme bias to it? We know that family court is broken. We know that the family court is largely the reason why a lot of men fear getting married. Where is the conservative initiative to fight it? It doesn't exist. It doesn't exist because if the majority of these conservative men, like Charlie Kirk and Matt Walsh and many others like Ben Shapiro, especially Michael Knowles is probably gay. If they had a hardline position on women needing to submit and how marriage needs to be treated, with the purview and with the glasses on that does look and go, yes, the majority of women are broken. And yes, there are a lot of men who are not in the spots they need to be at the ages they need to be. Getting married young is generally not a good idea, and it does require extreme precaution. But you don't get that. And you can't even get a recognition of how biased or unequal it is, and how clearly effeminate and effeminized our society is, and how feminism is clearly at a 70-30 odds with, like, the majority of it is driven by female nature and females in general. They would come home to their wife tapping their foot and going, "Oh, is that what you think about women? Oh, really? Women should do what, honey?" They're owned. And then next thing you know, their sexual access is now threatened with their own wives. Their day-to-day operations is now threatened because they're going to have a pissed off wife who now might be doing things intentionally, like not cleaning clothes or not showing up. And so it threatens a lot of things. And you can see it. You can read it in so many of these guys' eyes. They won't take a hard position on marriage because it would threaten their own marriage. And that is a statement on the fact that many people in the conservative space are not practicing what they're preaching. They do not have wives that submit to them. They live in the egalitarian circles they tell men that they should avoid. And it pisses me off. And I know it pisses Jeff off too. And if you're not familiar with Jeff's story, you have to. I mean, you have to. And there was a really good interview he did with, I cannot remember, I think his name was like the Father Cast or something like that. But he went into detail on a good bit of what had happened to him when he began trying to fight back. And he talks about how many churches basically shut the door in his face, told him to F off. How many Republican and conservative groups basically turned their backs on him, and he was alone. They left him behind. They wouldn't fight that fight for him. And so imagine that. Churches and conservative organizations won't even begin to pick up the defense of helping a man not allow his child to get castrated and transed. Yeah, conservative my fucking ass. It's called progressives versus liberals. Right? There is nothing conservative, and there hasn't been for a long time, about the conservative party. Charlie Kirk and Matt Walsh, Ben Shapiro, Michael Knowles are all exemplary of that. They are all basically just conservative light. They are right-leaning libertarians. They are economic conservatives at best. They do not practice what they preach. And so that was that video. And the other one that I wanted to cover as well too was going to be the generational run, because obviously you're getting a lot of leftists. And now this one was curious because of what this guy said about Hassan in Destiny. And I don't know who this guy is, but it was clipped by First Class Clips. And I think this will be where we'll probably end on. Let me get rid of that tab here. Let me put it on screen. I apologize, guys. I got on screen here. You might have seen this already, but it's from First Class Clips. But he says, Nick Fuentes is on an absolutely generational run right now. Yeah, he is. About a minute and a half long. And this is him kind of openly giving his thoughts about what the left-wing strategy should be. How does the left combat Nick Fuentes? And so here's his thoughts on the matter.
Nick Fuentes is on an absolutely generational run right now, and I'm not seeing enough people on the left talking about it because I feel like the consequences of it could be extremely dangerous down the line if they snowball like they're beginning to now. Now, of course, I'm referring to him breaking into a lot of these online mainstream communities, like doing interviews with Bradley Martyn and collabs with people like Cookie King and Clavicular and the Looksmaxers and all of that. And I think it has the potential to do a lot of damage, especially with the antecedent issue of young men's race to the far right and just accelerating that and pushing the Overton window with young men to the far right. And I feel like more people should be talking about it and doing something to try and counteract it.
The first thing he gets wrong here is that the Overton window is not pushing men to the right. Men are already to the right. They're just being more vocal about it, thus dragging the Overton window to them. Sky Hardy is exhibiting his ignorance.
And obviously this next piece of evidence is more anecdotal, but I'm seeing him more on my feed as a leftist, and I'm seeing people in the comments saying, oh, I'm a Democrat, or I'm a leftist, or I'm a liberal, but I'm agreeing with Nick Fuentes. And I think that's really dangerous and indicative of how out of touch the Democratic Party is right now, and why we need more people like Zohran Mamdani running and gaining seats and gaining substantive power. Because Zohran, of course, spearheaded the largest youth turnout we've seen in a New York City mayoral election in a long time, and a lot of that was powered by young men and by the support of pulling young men out to vote. And on the left, the only voices we really have online with large followings are Hassan and Destiny. Shoot me. Neither of them are very charismatic. Neither of them are very influential. Both of them are seen as toxic and chronically online by the majority of young men. And neither of them have the potential to really counteract Nick Fuentes. We need to have more voices on the left oriented towards young men to start to fucking reel them back in, or we're going to be in a lot more trouble come 2028 and beyond.
But that's what I don't understand is, like, who does he think are going to, like, be more representative? Like no, it's the reality is like, you know, and maybe it needs to just be sat down and told this. It's like, hey, bud, like, your ideas suck. No one believes in them anymore. Everyone's seen the consequences of what happens when they go full send on these ideas. They have rejected them and have rejected this global homo jihad as well. They do not believe in this, right? So there's no guy that the left could possibly even, you know, clone in a lab somewhere that would be able to go toe to toe with Nick Fuentes. There just isn't. The other guys that were even close to him are also on the right. And they would argue about minor things like application of governance and the nuance on economy and, you know, maybe just like church and state applications. It wouldn't be a major difference in message at all. You know, and hopefully, you know, as a fellow white kid right there, right on how old he is, I do hope that one day he can wake up to what he has been indoctrinated into. It's not really a good feeling when you see these kids basically fully believing in that they should be these cucks and these twinks and they should bow down at the feet of any other non-white individual because they worship at the altar of race. You know, I know it's easy to say this kid's an idiot and he's dumb and we don't like him. It's like, at the same time, it's like the ultimate goal is we want to win his soul back. We want to win his soul for Christ, and then also join the fight and be aware of this basically eternal warfare we've been fighting for God knows how long, since the beginning of time. And especially in the American paradigm, you know, for at least the last 100 years, if not longer, you know, especially if you trace it back to the Freemasons and the founding of the country. And, you know, I guess just a sad piece there too, but ultimately, you know, I wish the best for him. And I hope I hope kids like this continually watch Nick Fuentes because they probably will be shaken from the indoctrination. I think Nick is a really good job at that. And I do have another super chat in here. Go to Cowpoke Ranch.
Cowpoke Ranch has donated $5 and says Lily Gaddis and Tommy Lauren are perfect examples. Always super traditional until you challenge feminism. If a woman is based she and hashtag 039 s deceiving you. Yeah.
Now, I would say probably, man, I don't know if I'd put Lily Gaddis and Tommy Lauren in the same category at all. But I do agree though, especially on Tommy Lauren. Let's go with Tommy Lauren because she's the easier example. Tommy Lauren is like this childless woman who just shits on men all day. She basically says, men are lazy, they don't do enough, and that's why women are all masculine, and it's all men's fault, and like that's what she runs with. And she's this covert feminist. You know, she's supposedly this conservative Christian woman. I don't even know if she says she's Christian or not. Supposedly is, and then where's she ain't in the kitchen. Where's her children? Right? I think she might be married, but I don't think she has any kids. And it's like, it's all fake. It's all theater. And unfortunately, you know, it exploits, just like how the media and most propaganda does, it exploits the very base instincts of humanity. And for women, that's like brute force consensus, right? If every Google search result says the same thing, it's like, okay, they go, okay, I believe that. And then, vice versa. It goes with men, right? With rage bait, because men are much more prone to anger. They're predisposed to getting angry. So they do a lot of rage baiting. And then same thing with women. You can see it, and a microcosm of that is how women kind of gaslight men. They get men angry. The moment the man goes angry, they say, look, you're being abusive. And it's this very manipulative structure. And it parallels with a lot of things all over, right? You can see microcosms in personal life, but also in the bigger picture, it's a lot of the same thing there too, with that exploitation of, the natural biologies between men and women. Lily Gaddis is a bit better. She's a step in the right direction. She's at least open to the, the pro-white aspect of it. And one of these sad videos, right? There's one, and I think it was like in the metro area in the UK, or it might have been France. Or no, it might have even been New York. I can't remember now. But basically it was like one of these illegal immigrants was like trying to steal something, or he tried stealing something, but in the attempt to steal, he basically pushed this dad, which caused this dad to drop his kid. But what happened was a lot of bystanders saw what happened and they started beating the shit out of this guy. But what happens halfway through when the crowd starts reacting? Here comes this white woman coming across the metro area to go try to break up the fight. If there's any woman in this chat right now, I'm going to give you the best piece of advice in your entire life. If two men are slugging it out, stay the fuck away. Stay away. Not only are you going to risk yourself getting beaten and further damage happening to you and you being assaulted, but like, it's just a danger and it's a distraction, especially if it's your man that's the one that's fighting. He doesn't need another reason to have to look away from the threat that's at him. Don't be stupid. You're not a man. A 14-year-old boy could tussle and beat the living fuck out of any woman on the planet. Like, just drop the idea that you have any meaningful aspect of physicality. Don't step into fights. And that bothered me. But Lily Gaddis, though, on the same hand, is still operative in that same format like Tommy Lauren and Candace Owens, which is they make their living by being public figures and being vocal and telling people how to live their lives. And so they're in this position of authority. And so it kind of, it's ironic to claim you're a conservative when you're in that position. Lily, I would say, is definitely better. But I agree with Zerka, and a lot of people in my Discord are like this too. I ultimately think many conservative men will have an easier time romancing a liberal female than they will a conservative. I think a lot of conservative women understand the game and they are going to manipulate you. They understand covert feminism and they use it like a sword. A lot of these liberal girls just like, the feminism will fall off their bodies when you start being a man around them. And there's many such cases like this. I think there's even a viral video of a TikTok of a girl saying these same things. And that would be my advice to men too. Trying to date a woman out of the conservative pool is not the move. Trying to date a woman off of your church, many people would push for that. It's not the move. More often than not, they have been fully adopted and indoctrinated this idea of servant leadership. They will not submit. And it's just not indicative of a Christian marriage. And I think with that is where I will leave it. I appreciate everybody for being in here. If anybody has any last minute questions, I'll kind of let it sit for a couple minutes. I didn't hit the full 2-hour mark like I normally do. But I do appreciate it, guys. I might do another, I'll probably will end up only doing streams for the rest of this week because of my work schedule. So be on the lookout, probably not tomorrow, but possibly on Saturday. And then if depending, I might possibly even call into outside the Overton at some point as well too. And then if Casey can do an interview this weekend as well, I would like to get that done too. And still looking for Hood Servative as well. Man, I've tried to reach that brother multiple times. If anybody has a connection, let him know. I would love to have a collab with Hood Servative. I would. And then a few others obviously Jeff Younger as well too. And getting some more collab pieces out there as well. And you guys let me know too. I used to put everything from all of my streams onto a podcast format with Apple and Spotify. I haven't done that since I joined the Jar Opener venture almost a year ago. If you guys would like me to do that, just leave comments on the video after the stream's over, or comment somewhere, or let me know, or tag me on X. Doesn't matter. I literally don't care. Let me know and I will. And I'll probably backlog the last couple of them and restart uploading some of those streams here there too. That way, if I get booted off here, I'll at least have a catalog somewhere you guys can you can find me at. But with that, thank you very much. Christ is King, ban woman. Yeah, make sure you smash the like button. That helps me so much. Ban all women out of public life. Deport Kash Patel and anybody who swears on anything besides the Bible. That shit is despicable. Christ is King. Jesus is Lord. I love you all. And again, thank you guys greatly for all the support. Literally, I could not do a thing that I'm doing right now without it. So with that, I appreciate it very much. And anyone who donated today too, Super Chat, thank you very much. I appreciate it greatly. And I will see you guys next time. Take care.
Chains clink, hear the echo in the fog of the land. Dollar bills on the leash, gripped tight by the hand. Eagles clip, can't fly, wings covered in grime. Statues cry, tears of oil, rusted gears at a time. Never bow, never break, never simping again. Simping's a sickness, let the truth be the pen. Trust the plan, they said, but look where we stand. A chessboard flip, now it's war in the sand. Puppet strings pulled tight, marionettes in the hall. Politicians dance smooth while the empire falls. Mountains of debt, can't climb, can't crawl. Truth buried deep beneath the Capitol walls. Drums of war beat heavy, echo loud in the haze. Promises shattered like glass in a maze. Voices scream betrayal, trapped in the blaze. The flag waves torn, lost in forgotten days.
Atlas says,
never bow, never break,
Atlas
never
Tuck is a
simping
beast.
again. Simping's a sickness, let the truth be the pen. Trust the plan, they said, but look where we stand. A chessboard flip, now it's war in the sand. Never bow, never break, never simping again. Simping's a sickness, let the truth be the pen. Trust the plan, they said, but look where we stand. A chessboard flip, now it's war in the sand. Trump card played wrong, now the deck's in their hands. Deal signed in the dark, bleeding out the land. Fist clenched, eyes sharp, time to make a stand. Own our future, no pawn, just a king in demand. Trump card played wrong, now the deck's in their hands. Deal signed in the dark, bleeding out the land. Fist clenched, eyes sharp, time to make a stand. Own our future, no pawn, just a king in demand.